Hello, welcome to week 3 of the Blessed Conversations. And I am Nicola, and I am here with Jerusha, Mike, and Sarah. And this evening we are talking about how do I share my story. And so to introduce these lovely people on the sofa, I've asked them to share just a short 30-second snippet, or if they can get it, their whole life story in about their story. Okay, I'm going to go first because I feel like it might be a little bit mean. So I'm just going to share a little bit. I actually grew up in King's Church. I grew up in a Christian family, but I became Christian when I was a teen. And one thing that Jesus has done in my life is given me that freedom where my friends have kind of had that pressure of trying to have a life that makes an impact. Or kind of like you have to have something that you succeed in life. But actually my success in life is through Jesus. And that takes all the pressure off me because I know everything I'm doing, Jesus is loving me and at work in me. So that is my story. Jerusha, I'm going to go to you first.
Lovely. Not to sound dramatic, so I'd say I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Jesus. Because I'm an artist, I'll put it in a picture. I see a big hand and I see a young girl who's just lying down in a dark room on the floor, and this hand just comes up and picks this girl's limp body up and puts her outside. And that's my life. I've been in really bad places, and Jesus has got me out of those places with his sweet, loving, gentle hand.
That's so good. Thank you for sharing. That's great. Mike, go for it.
I grew up in a church as well, and I had sort of a few moments with God, but I went to university, very much became one of the lads. It was, the freedom of university and the money that you get from the student loans and everything like this, but after a few weeks of doing the kind of partying and the alcohol, etc., I sort of thought, there must be more to life than this. And, is there even a God? Because I had the kind of Christian upbringing and the sort of morality that went along with it. And I decided to pursue that and really seriously figure out if there was a God. And I obviously found out, yes, there is. And I'm here. Sorted that one. And really it changed my heart, and it's hard to describe, I suppose, the transformation. But yes, I found there was a God who loves me and who speaks to me, and I can have a relationship with him. Yeah.
That's so good. Thank you. And Sarah?
So I also grew up in a Christian family, but I hit my teens and I basically turned my back on God. For 17 years, or at least 17 years, I also lived the wild life over those years, and then just had a very messy breakup with someone, and on the back of that ended up coming to Alpha at HTB, and God just met me in such a deeply personal way. In fact, I didn't share with anyone for about 6 months. I know they always say you should when you first come back to God, but I didn't, because I didn't want anyone to spoil it. It was so personal. And I think over the years, he's also shown me that actually I'm significant and that I'm enough because I'm made in his image.
So good. Thank you for sharing. Oh, great. So we've just shared our stories, but why do we think powerful? Why do you think stories are powerful? What power do they have?
Well, stories, I think, help us relax. So sharing your story, often there can be nervousness associated with it. But using the form of story, it helps you relax as you're sharing, because you're talking about yourself, you're just recounting something that happened, but also actually to listen to someone share their story is quite relaxing as well. And that's really important because relaxed people, they can connect better. You can, I think you can follow, you can be more easily led by the Holy Spirit as well when you're relaxed and you're going slowly. So yeah, they're a great tool.
That's good.
Yeah. I think it adds credibility as well because it's about you, because people are already connecting with you. And certainly I think, if I'm speaking to my friends, they know me, they know my stories, they know my backgrounds. And so if I'm then sharing about what Jesus has done to me, we've already got that level of relationship that they're going to listen to.
Yeah. No one can argue with your story.
No.
Can they? They
Yeah.
can't be like,
Not
"Oh, that's
really.
not true."
Not really.
That's what happened. Can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of similar, I think being vulnerable is very important, and it forms such a beautiful connection. And when you do, you see that other people open up to you also, and then you've made the safe space for everybody to talk. And I also think it helps in explaining really complex issues that are more difficult to understand if it's just being preached at you. But then if you're hearing someone talk about it, how they applied it in their lives and how it worked out for them, I think it makes Christianity, it makes the Bible, God, more relatable.
Yeah.
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 And I think the other thing we were saying was actually that it's not confrontational, isn't it? The sharing a story, whereas preaching, perhaps you're not trying to preach, but telling them what the Bible says about this X, Y, and Z, which can come across as sort of preaching or being lectured to. It can be a bit more confrontational because the person listening is sort of has the opportunity to either agree with you or disagree with you. But with the story, it's just they have the opportunity to empathize with you and enter into your experience, which again helps with a connection. So yeah, it's less confrontational.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really good. That's really good. And do you think there's a wrong or a right time to share your story?
I'm sure there's a wrong time to share your story. Just at the stalls and the ladies. And just like, well,
No one wants to
actually.
hear a story then. That's true. What about the right times? When are the right times?
For me, it's usually, the obvious one is when people ask you. And if when you're living a very outrightly Christian life, people will know because you tell them, oh, I'm going to church or I'm doing this for church. And they'll be like, okay, what's up? How are you Christian? So I think that's a really good place when people ask. But if they don't ask, what I feel helps is when people are talking about that general topic that you have probably struggled with, then it's nice to give them a snippet of your story, being like, oh yeah, that's relatable. I used to struggle with it, or I do struggle with it, and this is how God restored me, or something like that. I think that's fun.
For men talking with guys, obviously we have conversations differently, don't we, to women, and it's easier if you're doing something, there's some sort of activity. It's not just a sit down and talk, or it can be a sit down and talk, but maybe followed by some activity. And so whether it's some sport or you're hiking or cooking or whatever it is, that kind of moment, that kind of context, again, it helps us relax. And I think often it's, if you think about a conversation perhaps happening over the course of a couple of hours, if you're doing, playing some sport or something, the time for sharing, which is quite intimate, often comes towards the end. There's that sense of you've met each other and you've caught up and you've chatted and you relaxed, you played together or whatever, you beat them at table tennis, as I do my dad. And then it's like, okay, we've done our play, we've done our business. Now we can kind of talk a little bit more about personal things, and that can be the opportunity to it's a more relaxed environment. That can be the opportunity to share. Yeah.
Yeah. Next conversation, we'll do it on a bike ride or something. But yeah, it's knowing the context or what works. I know that for me, it's sometimes there's just a throwaway line where I was talking to some friends and I just said something about, oh, I just know that God's got it in hand. And then that led into another conversation of, oh, what does that mean? How do you know that God has got it in hand? And I was able to share of a previous experience where I didn't feel like I had it in hand, but God had it in hand, and it was really evident. There's that thing of, that's the right moment. So...
Yeah, I think sometimes you can sense that there's a right moment to bring things up. So there was an old lady I met recently, And for one reason or another, we got chatting and she started sharing about her ailments. It was a bit random that she sort of felt she wanted to tell me her medical history. and I can remember just thinking, now this is interesting, what's going on here? And I just thought, actually, I need to tell you about Jesus. And I offered to pray for her, and because I think that was almost screamingly obvious, actually, that's what needed to happen there. So I think sometimes it does stand out.
Yeah. What made it screamingly obvious to you? God, just dig
because
a
there was
little bit deeper
because
into
there
that.
was a need. She'd obviously got a need, and it just sitting there and saying, "Oh, that's a shame," just doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't do anything. That and it was just really clear that obviously Jesus is the answer. He's the one who can heal.
Yeah.
So
it's that openness, isn't it? Like some
it
people,
is.
when they're talking, they have that openness. It's like, okay, there's a clear opportunity. Whereas I think a lot of conversations are quite closed.
Yeah.
So when that openness comes along,
Yeah.
yeah,
She actually ran away.
afterwards, okay, that was closed.
When you
No, I said, could I pray for you? And she said, "Oh yes, that's nice," and then ran off down the road. So, but still,
But you still were able
I still did
to
it.
bring Jesus into the conversation
Yeah.
and share
Yeah.
that story with her. And we don't know what's going to happen.
no.
God's got it in hand. So thinking about our stories, what would you include? What would you maybe not include in your story?
I always try and make sure that I include Jesus in the story, make him
Always
the
key.
hero of the story.
Yes, so that's good.
It's like a really dramatic, build it up, and then just be like, yeah, but Jesus, you know what he did? Yeah, so I think no matter who I'm talking to, Christian or non-Christian, I don't think I'm very afraid of saying Jesus did this. Because I've tried to do my story in my head without mentioning God, and it's never worked. I don't know how else to put it across, because it's never been my own will and strength. So I think I always try and include that. I do leave out details based on who I'm talking to. For example, if I was talking to any of you, and if you ask me questions, I kind of trust you. I know you from church. You're a church leader, so I'm very okay telling you everything.
Worried.
But I think definitely if it's a stranger that I met off the street and we just started chatting, I'm not going to sit there and tell them about the deepest, darkest moments of my life. I could glaze over. I think what's nice is if you just talk about the different areas that you struggled with, they usually relate to one of those things, because I think we're all very relatable. We all have kind of similar struggles as humans. So that's also a good thing to include.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I think including what Jesus did, that's the major thing. That brings hope. God did this for me, and he can do this for you, and it doesn't always obviously have to be this story of how I came to faith, but it could be the story of God did something wonderful in my marriage, or whatever's really applicable. Just a brief story. I was sharing one time with my hairdresser about when we got talking about healing for some reason, and I shared about how one time God had healed me, and I told her perhaps a bit too much detail, because I sort of mentioned the verse. It was by his stripes we have been healed, but then I went to theologically explain all of that, and I suddenly looked up in the mirror and she was so embarrassed, and it was a really awkward moment because I was talking about Jesus being whipped and the blood, and really intense. And she had other customers, next to her. And I just, this is not a great moment. So maybe that's not what to include.
You had her captivated though, or captured at least.
That's
It
true.
wasn't like the old woman for Sarah where she had to run away.
Yeah. Against her will. I won't pay you unless you finish my haircut, listen to my story.
Let's not capture people.
Yeah. So I think perhaps leaving it at story level. Theology can come another time, in an alpha course maybe.
Yeah.
But
Be aware of who's around you as well.
Yes, context, yeah.
It's always good.
Yeah, I think I tend to sort of, especially if I know someone, actually that makes it much easier to be able to tailor the story so that you focus on the bits that you know that they're going to be most interested in, that's going to be applicable to their lives. Yeah, I think that's often what I will do, rather than sort of coming up with the whole thing from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you touched on that thing of context. Why is context important in kind of knowing and sharing our stories?
It's to make it relatable, I think, so that people do actually relate to what you're saying, and this, because I think that's how they're more likely to sit up and go, oh, okay, actually maybe this has got some relevance for me.
I think it's like I always say, like I think it's always nice to make God a very real part of your daily life and daily conversation. So it's almost easy to set context. It comes effortlessly when you're talking about Jesus. It doesn't always have to be the biggest story. It just has to be something silly like oh, I wanted to do something really bad today that I knew kind of was bad, and then I felt Jesus say, I probably shouldn't do it. And I was like, ugh, fine, I'll listen to you if I have to. So I think that so that kind of sets context almost, like it sets a place where people can further ask questions. So they were like, oh, so do you not do anything fun? It's like, no, I do lots of fun things. So then, yeah, they just want to kind of pick at what you have said. So I think it's really nice to kind of get him in your natural everyday conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And show how he's a natural part of your life as
Exactly.
well, and that you have that conversation where God might prompt you, and
Yeah.
to other people that's like, what? How does God prompt you?
It's like
or
a weird
anything
voice in your head. It's like,
Sounds really
well,
good.
not really. I read the Bible in the morning and then I read. So you're already telling them what you do as a Christian.
Yeah.
So I think that's really nice.
That's good.
And I think context as well, because sharing your story can be, I can be nervous, like, oh, I'd love to share my story with this person. When's the right time? It's hard. How are they going to take it? Is it going to be awkward? There's nervousness around that. And so the context of trust, of a relationship where there is trust and love, and that actually the important thing, as I'm thinking about sharing my story or as I'm sharing it, the important thing is the other person.
Yeah.
It's not, the important thing is not that, oh, I've got it off my chest, finally, I shared my story.
Yeah.
I did my job, God. That's not the important thing. The important thing is loving the other person and really, really wanting to signpost them to Jesus. And so in that context of really being for that person, it kind of shifts my mindset a little bit, and takes the focus off me performing, and makes it more about trying to serve this person. Maybe I've served them with dinner or with whatever it is, or just listen to them, and actually now I'm going to serve them with the story that I really want to help them with, and that context is I think it's really important.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. And we want to introduce people to Jesus, and we can do that.
Yeah, because
through
he's kind of
stories.
done so much. It's like you have this amazing
Kind of.
gift, and you're like, I mean, you don't want to keep the light to yourself. Nobody puts the light under the what is the
Bushel.
verse? Yes, you want to shine. You want to let it shine. And
Yeah.
So.
That's it. That's good. And so to end, can you give one encouragement or top tip to those who are watching or listening, in encourage them to share their story with someone who doesn't know Jesus? What would you say to them?
So I'm doing training in supernatural ministry at the moment. Just getting
Great
that one
plug.
in there. And one of the big things with that is about sort of being more courageous about sharing your story and things. And I would say I found that quite challenging. But the big thing I do is I just pray. Just ask God to give me the boldness. And it's amazing how often when that's happened and you go to open your mouth and actually it just all flows and flows really naturally. So I would say pray.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And I had one in mind. It's slightly slipped my mind now, but I think it was really just to relax and to go slowly, and make it about loving the other person. Yes.
Yeah, that's good. It's good. Keep it simple, slowly. Love the other person. I like it. Jerusha.
Yeah, I've had lots of conversations with people who don't believe in God, and very like philosophical, theological conversations. And we always go back and forth, because they always have a rebuttal for something that I have to say. But then when I talk about my story, they really, what can you say? You can't say that that's not true. It is true. I'm alive today because of that. So what are you going to tell me now? So I think knowing how powerful your story can be, and no matter how small you think it is or how big it might be or how dramatic it is, it's just your story. And I think just tell somebody, because it's the best. There's nothing they can really say after you shared your story. So I would say just get out of your head a little bit and just do it. Because it's not about you, like you said, it's about them and it's about God. So then where do you come into this,
Yeah.
So just tell it, just go for it. What's the worst that could happen?
Be brave and courageous.
Yeah.
That's it. Great.
And I was going to say sorry,
it.
I know you said just one, but
I'll let you
having a
have another
second.
One. Go.
Just really, it's just remembering that actually, it's for the Holy Spirit to convict. Our role is to make Jesus known. And personally, I don't think there is any such thing as a bad story.
True.
Yeah. That was great. Thank you so much, Jerusha, Mike, and Sarah. I've loved chatting with you guys and hearing your stories. I'm feeling very relaxed, but it is such an encouragement. And church, I hope this conversation has been really helpful for you in just thinking about how do we share our stories with our non-Christian friends, families, colleagues, who we meet on the street, whoever it is. And maybe it's thinking about, what's your story? How can you share your story simply? How can you think about the context? Do you just need to start praying for that and that boldness? And let's make it all about Jesus when we share our story. Have a great week, and I hope you come back next week when I have new people here with me, and we'll be discussing something else about how we outreach to our friends and family.